araw po sa inyong lahat. And I hope po na matuto naman po tayo today sa ating panibagong video po na ituturo namin sa inyo ang topic na conditional statement po. Pag sinabi po nating conditional statement, ito ay mga statements written into if-then form. So parang meron tayong statements sa if part and meron tayong statement sa then part po. So, parang if and then. And to identify the hypothesis and the conclusion of a conditional statement, yung ating hypothesis is found in the if part of the conditional statement, while the conclusion is at the then part po. So, let's try letter A po. So, if x is an even number, then it is divisible by 2. So, napakadali pong i-identify yung ating hypothesis at conclusion. So, sa letter A po, ang ating hypothesis po ay x is an even number po. So, yan po yung ating hypothesis. So, hindi na po natin isasama yung if na word po. And, yung ating conclusion naman po is, it is divisible by 2 po. So, yan po yung ating conclusion po. Then, for letter B po, yung ating hypothesis is, you can see the stars. So, if you can see the stars, then it is night. So, for this statement po, the hypothesis is, you can see the stars po. And our conclusion, it is night po. So, napakadali po, di ba? So, ulitin ko po, yung ating hypothesis po is found in the if part, while the conclusion is found at the then part po of a conditional statement po. Number 2, we are going to write a conditional statement from each of the following. So, let's try letter A po. Congruent segments have equal measures. So, this is a statement po or a sentence. And sa sentence po, meron tayong dalawang part. We have the subject and the predicate po. So, yung ating subject po ay gagawin natin siyang statements sa if part po. And yung ating predicate po ay gagawin natin siyang statement sa then part po. So, gagawin po natin siyang complete sentence po. So, magiging if. So, paano natin gagawing sentence itong congruent segments? So, ang gagawin natin, if segments are congruent. So, complete sentence na po siya or complete thought na po siya. Kasi ito siya. Meron na tayong subject, meron na tayong predicate. Comma, then, since itong have equal measures refers to segments, so magiging, then, ano yung magiging pronoun nito? Then, they have equal measures po. So, ayan po. So, meron na tayong if-then statement po or a conditional statement out of the first sentence given. Can you try letter B po? Let's wait for 30 seconds. Kung meron na po kayong answer. So, ano po yung ating magiging po yung subject ng ating sentence at ano po yung ating predicate po. So, ito pong 3 non-collinear points ay subject po natin. And yung ating predicate po ay itong determine a plane po. So, ayan po. Kapag gagawin natin siyang if then, ano yung ating pinaka-subject? Since ano po yung ating, ano dito ay yung points, yung pinaka-main subject po, or pinaka-simple subject po natin. So, if 3 points are non-collinear. So, ayan po. So, naging sentence na po siya. Meron na tayong subject, meron na tayong predicate. So, non-collinear yung ating 3 points po. So, nakabuo tayo ng isang sentence. Then, since 3 points po siya, marami po. So, ang ating gagamiting pronoun ay then, they determine a plane po. So, di ba meron tayong theorem na if 3 points are non-collinear, then they determine a plane po. So, pag sinabi natin non-collinear, ito ay they are points not on the same line po. Kaya, pwede tayo maka-determine ng plane using 3 non-collinear points po. So, proceed tayo sa letter C. So, parallel lines do not intersect. So, we have our subject, parallel lines. And ano ngayon yung ating maging if part ng ating conditional statement? So, from this phrase, parallel lines. So, how will we make this as a statement or a sentence? If, since yung ating adjective po is parallel, so we can make it as our predicate po. So, if lines are parallel, then, so lines po yung ating tinutukoy, so pronoun po natin is they. Marami po. Then, they do not intersect po. Yun na po yung ating conditional statement. And, for our letter D, we have right angles as our subject and our predicate measure 90 degrees po. So, kapag iti-transform natin into if then form, magiging if. So, same with letter C. So, yung adjective po ng angles ay right. So, yung right po ay magiging predicate po ng ating sentence. If angles are right, then they measure 90 degrees po. So, ayan na po. So, to transform statement into if-then form, kailangan mo nating i-identify yung subject and predicate ng ating sentences para magamit natin siya into if and then part po ng ating conditional statements po. We have our number 3. So, we're going to write the converse, inverse, and contrapositive of each conditional statement po. So, ang una nating identify is yung, kung ano yung ating hypothesis and conclusion po. So, and another po is paano po natin ginagawa yung negation po? So, ganito po. So, we are stating the opposite of the statements. So, maglalagay, halimbawa, meron tayong, I like you. Paano siya ininegate? Or, ano yung ating negation ng I like you? So, magiging, I do not like you. Or, I don't like you. So, yun po yung ating negation po ng statement po. So, we are using the word not to state the negation of a statement po. So, gagamitin natin po yung negation sa ating conversion ng statement or pag-transform po ng ating statement into converse, inverse, and contrapositive. So, let's try letter A po. So, ang converse, inverse, at contrapositive. So, let's start first with the hypothesis. So, ang ating hypothesis is P, and ang ating conclusion is Q. So, we are representing the hypothesis and the conclusion po. So, for our hypothesis, two angles are complementary. And for our conclusion, their sum is equal to 90 degrees. So, ang tinutukoy dito na their sum ay yung sum ng dalawang angles po. So, yun po. So, sa paghanap ng converse po, or if we're going to write the converse of the conditional statement, kasi po yung ating conditional statement ay if P, then Q po. So, if P, then Q. Or in symbol po, ganito po yung ating symbol po. P implies Q po. P implies Q. Yung ating implies or yung implication natin is yung ating arrow po. So, to write or to transform the statement or the conditional statement into converse, we are going to reverse the hypothesis and the conclusion. So, magiging if the sum of the two angles is equal to 90 degrees, then so ayan po. So if the sum of the two angles is equal to 90 degrees, then these angles are complementary po. So, ito yung ating hypothesis kanina. So, naging conclusion na siya pagdating sa converse. And yung ating conclusion ay naging hypothesis na siya sa converse ng ating conditional statement po. Then, so, ang converse po natin ay Q implies P po. Then, for our inverse, we are going to negate our hypothesis and the conclusion po. So, not P implies not Q. So, yung ating conditional statement ay P implies Q po. So, yung magiging inverse natin, if two angles are not complementary. So, napakahalaga po na isulat natin yung not to indicate that we are negating the statement po. Then, their sum is not equal to 90 degrees po. So, naglagay din tayo ng not sa ating conclusion kasi meron tayong not. So, ito po yung symbol ng not, yung parang wave lang po. Isa lang po. Not P implies not Q. So, yan po yung ating inverse. Then, pagdating naman sa contrapositive, so, we're going to negate Q implies not P. So, yung ating converse, ininegate po natin siya, both hypothesis and conclusion po. So, magiging if the sum of the two angles is not equal to 90 degrees, then these angles are not complementary. So, ayan po. So, meron na tayong converse, meron na tayong inverse, at meron na tayong contrapositive. So, ulitin ko lang, or highlight ko lang po yung ating pag-transform po from conditional statement to its converse, inverse, and contrapositive. So, pag conditional statement, we have P implies Q. Pag converse po, magre-reverse po yung ating hypothesis and conclusion, magiging Q implies P. For our inverse, mag-negate po tayo ng ating hypothesis and conclusion, magiging not P implies not Q. Then, for our contrapositive, we are negating Q implies not P po. So, nakuha nyo po. So, yung ating hypothesis dito sa ating conditional statement ay align, bisects A, segment po. So, ito yung ating P. At yung ating Q, the segment is divided into two congruent parts po. So, ito po yung ating Q. So, ano yung ating magiging converse? So, start po tayo. Converse Q implies P. So, magiging if the segment is divided into two congruent parts, then align, bisects a segment. So, yan po yung ating converse. So, nag-reverse lang po tayo ng hypothesis and conclusion. For our inverse, so, may not P implies not Q po. So, negate na po natin yung hypothesis and the same time yung ating conclusion. So, if align does not bisect a segment, then the segment is not divided into two congruent parts. So, yan po yung ating inverse. How about the contrapositive? So, we have not Q implies not P. So, we have, so from the converse po tayo, negate lang po natin. If the segment is not divided into two congruent parts, then align does not bisect a segment. So, ayan po. So, ayan po yung ating converse, inverse, and contrapositive ng ating given conditional statement po. Nakuha niyo po ba? Okay. Our fourth exercises po today. So, we're going to write a biconditional statement from each of the given conditional and converse statements po. So, we can write a biconditional statement if the conditional and the converse are both true po. So, kailan lang magiging false yung ating conditional statement? Kapag yung ating hypothesis ay true at yung ating conclusion ay false. Kung meron po tayong counter-example na maibibigay, so false po yung ating statements po or yung ating conditional statements. I-highlight ko lang po. False lamang po yung ating conditional statement kapag true yung ating hypothesis and false po yung ating conclusion. So, yun po. So, lahat na po ay true maliban doon sa condition na true yung hypothesis, false yung conclusion. So, start po tayo. So, we have a conditional statement. If two angles share a common side, then they are adjacent. And its converse, if two angles are adjacent, then they share a common side. So, both the conditional and the converse statements true. Oh. So, to write a biconditional statement, we use the phrase if and only if. So, we are going to write a biconditional statement. So, we have two angles are adjacent if and only if they share a common side. So, yan po. So, we use the phrase if and only if. Or in other statement po, two angles share a common side if and only if they are adjacent po. So, same lang din po yun. So, laging tatandaan po na to write a biconditional statement, make sure po na yung ating conditional and converse ay true. And let's have letter B po. So, ang ating biconditional statement dito ay the kettle is whistling if and only if the water is boiling. So, ayan po. So, ayan po yung kanyang biconditional statement. Or, the water is boiling if and only if the kettle is whistling. Okay? We're going to find the truth value of the following conditional statements po. So, alamin natin kung true or false yung ating conditional statements. So, letter A, if a man lives in the United States of America, then the man lives in North America. Is it true or false? Any guess? So, this conditional statement is true. Why? USA is a country in the North America. So, ibig sabihin, pag ikaw ay nakatira sa United States, napapabilang ka din sa North America. So, kaya po siya ay true po. So, di ba po, napaka-simple lang po. How about letter B? So, ang letter B po natin ay false. Why? So, if a number is divisible by 3, then the number is odd. How about if the number is 24? 24 is divisible by 3, di ba? So, 24 divided by 3 is 8. And 24 is not an odd number. It is an even number. So, kaya yung ating conditional statement ay false. Yun po. Next. If an angle is acute, then it measures 20 degrees. So, this conditional statement is false. 20 lang po ba yung pwedeng maging measures ng ating acute angle? So, di ba pag sinabi nating acute, ang measures po niya ay between 0 to 90 degrees. So, ayan po. So, kaya po, pwedeng 45 po yung ating measures po. Or pwedeng 42, 58, 78 po. So, kaya po ay false po yung ating conditional statement. So, okay po. So, I hope na natutunan naman po kayo today sa aming video po na pinakita. Thank you for watching po, and I hope po na madami po kayo natutunan. Ingat po lagi, and God bless.